Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. Something we're going to talk about today, we actually put out there a couple weeks ago. This is how this thing works, and then it sort of filters out to the general space. So check it out. Get your Heat information first from there. Also, be putting all the articles that Alex, myself, Brady, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network write for Sports Illustrated. I'm now managing the Heat page there, so we'll get everything on there in addition to the most Heat information and conversation that you're already getting. So check it out. It's Off the Floor. Also, PrizePicks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down your $5. Get your 50 to play right away. PrizePicks, the official fantasy sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And you can play the NFL right now. They got lots of free plays on there, free squares, almost free squares. Want to jump on those before the Thursday night games. Check it out. It's prizepicks.com. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation, we the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket, open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy paths or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us snoring. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the court to the streets. Yeah, Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
The floor is today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. We're talking about Norman Powell today. We've been watching a lot of Norman Powell's social media this offseason. He definitely understands the grind. He's been pushing a lot of that stuff out there on his social. It's a whole brand, the grind, and it seems like the Heat have been happy with it, with what he's brought so far. And we told you about 2 weeks ago that we were hearing whispers that the Heat would be interested in extending him. He's in the last year of his contract. He's on a very friendly deal. Do you know that every single player who scored more points than him last year made more money than him last year?
Motivation.
And actually a whole bunch of others who scored fewer points than him made a lot more money than he did last year, and he did it efficiently. And the results are in terms of the consensus. The consensus of national media folks and those who do these lists at Bleacher Report and Hoops Hype and all these other spots, they're not that keen on the Heat in general, but they all universally agree that they stole Norman Powell. Like he's rated one of the top 5 thefts of the offseason. I've seen this pretty much everywhere from some writers that I respect, and it's hard to argue with it. They gave up 2 guys who were not projected to be rotation players. Kevin Love obviously had a role, but it was mostly in the locker room. He's going to get bought out by Utah soon, and hopefully he gets to go to a place he wants to go to. But there's no argument with the Norman Powell thing. I mean, I think anybody would just have to be hating for the sake of hating to say that they made the wrong move there when the Clippers called about it. And now they have basically some time to evaluate, but we said that they were actually thinking about extending him early. And now there's a report from Barry Jackson that they are indeed considering extending him, but based on how the beginning of the season goes. I had heard it might not even take that long.
Initially, yeah. That was like the signals. It sounded like, I think the numbers I initially heard were something 3 for 80, 3 for 88 were 2 like different figures that were thrown around. I don't know how close that those will end up. You know, it's an interesting thing. Like, do you get ahead of Norm Powell's market and lock him in at a good rate? Or do you risk extending a player when you haven't even had him play 1 game in your uniform yet, even if he's a great fit and you stole him for nothing? So I think it's, with what we heard from Barry Jackson in his recent reporting about them wanting to see how the season starts, it's probably the smart thing to do. Yeah. But yeah, I think that this is, because you have to see if he and Herro will work. But before that, just him individually as a player, it seems like the perfect fit. So it makes sense that they would maybe want to get ahead of, if he has another really great season where he's, a borderline all-star, which he was in LA last year, that would be huge for him heading into free agency.
Well, the counter that people are going to have here is the age, right? So age 32, and this is typically where decline starts to come, or has come in the past for a lot of different players. People are going to mention Jimmy. Again, they were willing to extend Jimmy. They just didn't want to give him that year at that number. He was already 35. Norm is 32. Norm is not Jimmy. I'll be clear on that. Okay. We're not expecting him to carry the franchise to the finals like Jimmy did. That's the caveat that always needs to be added. But he is coming off his best season. There has been an upward trend of late. He doesn't have a ton of wear on him in terms of, yes, he does have a championship with Toronto, but he was not one of their core starters at that point. There haven't been a lot of long playoff runs. He came in as a second-round pick. It took some time for him to establish himself. So, I mean, he's a 32-year-old who might be 29 or 30 in NBA years, and also clearly puts in the work. Like, that's obvious. His entire offseason has been geared towards showing everybody how much work he puts in, and that's the same thing you hear behind the scenes. So the age doesn't worry me as much, particularly because the rest of the team is so young. The average age of the projected rotation, we've done this, is 25.8. Norm will be the oldest player in that rotation. Wiggins is the second oldest, and I think it's more likely that Wiggins is gone before Powell is, just based on kind of where this is going, even though Wiggins has one more year left on his contract. So the age doesn't concern me. It's just, what is the chunk of money and how does that affect them going forward? That's more the issue. And when you combine it with the fact that we have heard that they also would like to extend Jovic, then you're like, okay, if you extend Jovic and Norm, let's just throw figures out here. We're just throwing out figures out here. Don't aggregate this. I'm an aggregator now. I'm not going to aggregate this. Okay. Although I'm telling you, with the Sports Illustrated side, we're going to try to do things a little differently. We're not going to just aggregate. We're going to actually provide our own stuff, so you can blame us for it. But let's just say Norm is 3 for 80. Let's just throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say Jovic is 3 for 45. Again, just throwing figures out there. So you're committing $125 million over 3 years, roughly $40 million of what you can spend, whether it's cap, tax, aprons, etc., to those two players, while Bam is making 50, while you still have and going up, or will be making 50.
Mm-hmm.
Then you still have Wiggins on the books for roughly 30. I know Rozier is going to be gone after this year, which clears quite a bit of it. You may be looking at a wear extension in a couple of years. We'll see. Hopefully, that's what you want to happen, is that he's worth it. I don't know about a Jaquez extension at this point, but I mean, who knows if he really resurrected himself and was still here. And then, of course, you have the one elephant in the room, which is the Herro contract.
Waiting for you to get there.
Right. So, but you have to make balanced decisions here. And obviously, if, let's say, just optics wise, okay, beyond just the money. Well, let me ask you about the money first. Then we'll get into the optics of it. From a money perspective, if I was to say to you that they retain Norm Powell for 3 years at, say, $80 million, maybe it could be descending. My guess is there's no team option in the third year, but I mean, who knows? Okay, that would be better, but probably not. Maybe there's a player option in the third year, possibly. Although I don't know why he'd opt out at age 35, but again,
or a partial guarantee, maybe
partial guarantee, something along those lines. But let's just say the basics of the contract are 3 for 80. The basics of the Jovic contract are 3 for 45. Are you concerned about the cap hit and the commitment to those two guys while you still have Bam, and putting those three together doesn't guarantee you anything?
Yeah, I think it's a valid point to make. Like, are you going to lock yourself into a roster that you're not sure about? I think part of it is, if you get players at the right prices and they still remain productive, and they, you can't have situations where you invest in a player and they forget how to play basketball like Terry Rozier did. So
right.
Obviously, like, you need everyone to play up to their contract. You're still in a position where I don't know that you can say you're confidently a contender in the league without further additions. And so just with that uncertainty, I don't know how you lock yourself into this team. Part of me would, I guess, when you talk about investing in Norm and Nico specifically, that Tyler has to be a part of the conversation, because I don't know that it's going to be Norm and Tyler. I think that and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think that there's going to have to probably be an either or long term. That's just my hunch. Obviously, It's September, so we'll see what ultimately plays out. So, because you can't pay Tyler $50 million on top of all this. So, like, that's where I guess it's just until you know what you're going to pay the very top players on the roster and who those players are, how can you really invest in all of the ancillary parts and tertiary pieces?
Well, the other part of it is that you also sign contracts these days with the idea that you may end up trading them. And that's the other thing is,
and if the season goes south, are they better with all these guys as expirings?
They might be. And the other part of this is that if you're looking to make a trade, like, you're trying to thread the needle here, because like you want to pay, you don't want to overpay in case you end up keeping the player, but you don't want to underpay, so to speak, so that the contract doesn't fit when you're trying to make a move. The Heat have had an issue in recent years because they haven't had these movable kind of mid-range contracts, right? They had and then the ones they've had, some of them they had to move for various reasons, or they just expired, like Duncan's did, and then there was a decision to make, obviously, and they made a decision to move on. Haywood's contract, they signed him to the 2-year deal, then they wanted to move on. They moved him along with a second-round pick because they want to go a different direction, play younger guys. But they haven't had like the contracts to make deals work. Like the Phoenix possible trade with Durant. I saw another report today, and I'm not even gonna engage in it, about how they may want Durant as a free agent in 2026. We're never doing another episode about KD. Okay, unless he's actually signed. Then otherwise, I'm with you. No more KD episodes. But I mean, let him play in Houston first, and let's see how it works, right? I mean, before we even have these conversations. But when they were trying to trade for KD, the contracts they were trying to do to grease it were the Wiggins contract or the Rozier contract, which were like $30 million or $24 million, and Phoenix said no to both, and that killed everything. Despite what everybody else says, it wasn't about not including Haywood Highsmith. It was that if you didn't include those two, then you had to give them every young piece to make it work, to stack all those contracts, and the Heat weren't willing to do that. Not for a guy who was Durant's age. So there is a benefit to having like a Jovic contract, for instance. Okay, as much as I want them to keep Nico, I'm a Nico supporter. But if you had a contract of his that was like in the 13 to 15 million a year range, like, that's a movable deal. Like, provided that he still looks like he's an effective player and some team thinks they can unlock his offensive skill set, his age, all that. I get it. Powell, if you're paying him in the high 20s per year, it might become a little harder to move if age catches up and there start to be some hamstring injuries and other things, even with his work ethic, that start to creep in there. And that is something that you need to consider. Like, I have no qualms, with them paying Jovic 3 for 45. I mean, none, zero. Like,
I mean, age is a huge,
right.
Like, that's a when you talk about Nico, you're investing in a player that's going to be ascending. Even when he signs his next deal, he could still be getting better as a player, whereas Norm is more final form. So that's where, until you know that Norm and Tyler work together, I just think you have to be really careful how you invest.
All right, let's talk specifically about Tyler on the other side of this, because I think that is really the big issue with everything that we're doing. Before we do, it's Wednesday. All it's been doing down here is raining. That's it. Like, seriously. And we know, it's raining. Okay, you're watching TV, you're watching Netflix. Maybe you want to have a couple drinks. You start to have a few more drinks. We get it. Okay, but before you do that, you got to try this game-changing product that I use before a night out with drinks. It's called, or even a night in at times. It's called pre-alcohol. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Fall right around the corner, so that means it's time to raise a glass to your favorite team, whether you're tailgating, enjoying a college game day, or watching Sunday's action on that fancy new TV. Don't forget ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink. Drink a pre-alcohol before drinking and enjoy great days after celebrating all season long. Go to zbiotics.com/on the floor to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use On the Floor at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/on the floor and use the code On the Floor at checkout for 15% off. Okay, here's the bigger issue, and it's twofold. You have Herro and Powell are going to be playing together in the backcourt. If you extend Powell and you don't extend Herro, it's going to hang over the entire year. Now the team will put it down, right? Tyler will probably say all the right things, and he may feel all the right things, or whatever it is you would think the right thing would be, right? Just play basketball, prove his worth, all the rest of that. I think we should do an episode strictly, and someone suggested to me this. My friend Mike Watson suggested to me, reached out to me on IG, and he had this idea where we do an episode about what level would Tyler have to get to this year to feel comfortable giving him the highest possible amount, which is an interesting episode. What the threshold would be for that. So we'll do that on another episode.
He'd have to have a couple Devin Booker games.
More than a couple, I think.
70 burgers.
I think for a lot of people, more than a couple, but I think they'd have to be in the playoffs for most people. But yes, we'll discuss where that is. Okay. But I think just generally, if you give Jovic, I don't think it's a big deal. You give him an extension, it's going to be a lot less than what Tyler's going to end up earning. But if you give Powell a lot of money early in the year, and the Herro thing is still kind of out there, which we expect it to be because we don't think the extension's coming now, and seems like he's going to bet on himself, and they're fine with that, and that's where you are, right? It's going to be a lot more next year, as he said. I just wonder how that's handled, right?
Yeah. I don't think you can extend Norm when he hasn't played a game while Tyler has been a part of a team that, despite what everyone ultimately says, like, he's been in the playoffs more than he hasn't. I don't know that they've had a ton of success necessarily with him on the court, but I don't think you could go into this season, and nor do I think the Heat want to create any sort of drama. So I think that they would be really careful with how the optics of that look. Cause like extending Bam is one thing, like you can get away with that. Although Jimmy, I don't think loved it at the time.
I mean, remember, Greg, they did deal with this. Like that was draft night, and that was the night where it was drafted, and the Bam extension came out, and it was kind of obnoxious, to be honest. It was totally overwhelmed, that news, by, this Shams' report? I can't remember. There was some report out there that Jimmy would not accept an extension under any circumstances, which, by the way, was bullshit. Okay. But it came out on that. Didn't seem coincidental that it came out on that day. So to your point, like, oh my God, I just did it. At the end of the day, I'll be interested to see. Now I've got all three of you. That's a tough question. To your point, it is going to be a bit of an overhang if they, like, let's say Norm has a good first 2 weeks, right? And they give him the extension, but Tyler has a good first 2 weeks too. The question is going to be to Tyler, well, when do you think you'll get extended? Right? That's the natural question to ask. I can hear Ira asking it in my head.
That's why I think that the prudent thing to do is wait until the summer, and you've got players that have vested interest in playing their absolute best. It's, that's what was so counterintuitive to the Jimmy situation, is that we all thought that his best move was to come in and play his ass off and have a banner season and make the Heat pay you or make another team pay you. I guess he figured out how to get paid anyway.
Right.
But he thought he was going to be motivated in a way that I think Tyler and Norm will probably both be more receptive to having to prove that. They're in different stages of their career, different accomplishments, different personalities, but to that, you can't extend one and not the other. Also, I think that Nico's in a different situation. Like if they were to extend him, I don't necessarily think that would be where Tyler, or Norm less so because he just arrived. Yeah. I don't think Tyler would have any beef with that, because it's like Nico's first contract after his rookie deal. It's a different stage. And so it's more about Norm and Tyler are so similar in archetype in certain ways, and you would expect them to provide a lot of the same stuff. So how much are you going to pay to both of them, and can they coexist?
Yeah, I couldn't see how anybody could have a problem with Jovic getting extended, provided that he's been putting in the work. I don't say. In fact, I think it would probably be greeted warmly internally because it would show that they're willing to pay him and keep a player who's shown signs of productivity. I don't see that one would be an issue. The Powell one's only an issue in the sense that you said that, like, if they're similar players and they're going to be tripping over each other, then paying so much to one guy sort of indicates, well, you're going to pay this much to the other guy who actually has proven more for your particular organization.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it gets a little tougher. Now, I don't think they're going to trip over each other. I actually think it's going to work, but like you said, we don't know until we see it. So that's where it does get a little bit dicey. And I do think they need to be a little careful about it. I think there needs to be conversations had with Herro or his representatives. Like, okay, this doesn't mean that we're not interested in keeping you. Keep the conversations going. You see where it goes. And I think that's the key to all of this, is just that the conversations are ongoing. They don't have to share it with us. Okay, they're not going to. But I just that there is that level of communication, and it doesn't develop into this rancor that developed between the Heat and Jimmy's camp, which some of which was completely unnecessary, and some of which, Pat sort of brought on the organization with his comments, and some of which Bernie brought on with not being completely forthcoming and in a lot of ways, and the rest of which Jimmy brought on. Okay. And ultimately, okay. So I don't see that happening here. I don't think so. I think it's going to be more, the thing to manage is not going to be as much Herro and the organization. It's going to be Herro and the fans. It's going to be that segment of the fans that's all over him that he clearly hears. Yeah. And that is the part. Now, it hasn't affected his play in the past. He's gone out and proven people wrong in a lot of different ways, and he proved Pat wrong to a degree, but he called him fragile, right? We've credited him for that. But there's going to be some of that. When he has a bad game, it's going to be all about, are you going to pay this guy $50 million? He's going to be facing that all year. So if they then pay Norm, and they haven't paid him yet, it gets louder. Right?
Yeah.
Because now you got less money on the table. And particularly if Norm is playing well, then well, why are we going to give this guy 50? That's what you're going to start hearing.
Yeah.
Even if Tyler's a better player and a younger player, that's not going to matter to most. So I'll let you close it. But I think that's the part of this that is more challenging to manage. And I hope they understand that. And I think they do. But it's going to have to be delicately done, basically.
This is a season where it's so they could go in a lot of different directions. It's hard to know if this is going to be treated like a true transition year where you kind of hold and you don't invest anywhere and you see how things play out. I think that ultimately you're probably a little more confident on the Norm Tyler thing working out for me. I think they can both be good players, but playing together, I want to see it. But I think that they can't afford to have another season where the locker room is in shambles and the team's not connected and stuff like that. So they're going to likely play this out and be pretty careful with how they approach. So we're probably making much about nothing. Ultimately, I don't think that either gets extended until next year. And just because I say that, they'll probably both be extended by Halloween.
I don't think Tyler does. I think Norm might, and I think Jovic. My hunch is Jovic will be too. I just think that's, and the other thing about the Jovic potential extension is that it actually is a good marker for somebody like Ware. Mm-hmm. Like if you're trying to motivate Ware, you're like, look, Nico came in, we called out his professionalism, we sent him to the G League, which didn't happen to Ware. We made him earn it. All the rest of this stuff, all of that approved, and look, he got paid. Like that does matter, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think the Jovic one is fraught with any peril. I don't. I mean, unless you're worried about his injury history, or that he's going to stop working. I'm not worried about that. I don't think it's fraught with peril internally in the locker room or anything like that. I think
and deals are so short that it would be remiss of me to not mention that no matter what decisions they made, the lucky thing is that they're not signing 5-year deals anymore.
No. No, that's a good thing. They would have liked to have signed LeBron and Bosh to 10-year deals, but again, that didn't happen. They signed him for 6 and had to deal with it after 4, and LeBron left after that. All right, thanks everybody for watching, listening, all the rest of that. Zabiotics, use the code on the floor. PrizePicks, use the code FIVE. We'll have more episodes. We're only about 3 weeks away from training camp. We're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. Alex and I will not have any more ridiculous episodes choosing post-COVID teams. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.